Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Fort Wayne Community Schools Board of Trustees. As we do each meeting, we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we'll have the roll call of members.
Good evening, Steve Corona from the 5th District.
Glenna Yale from the 2nd District.
Tom Smith, 3rd District.
Maria Norman, Member at Large.
Ann Duff, Member at Large. And I'm Julie Hollingsworth, elected from District 1. And my far left is Janet Doherty, the Clerk of the Board. Good evening. And our Superintendent, Dr. Wendy Robinson. Good evening. So we have no awards and recognitions on the agenda, so we move to our consent agenda, and these are items that come to us every meeting. They include the minutes from our previous meeting held on October 22nd, vouchers and payroll, vouchers for the period ending November 12th, payroll for the period ending October 12th, and then the personnel report. So do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Move. Second.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Steve. And members are, if they wish, can take any of these items out of the consent agenda, but seeing no one wishing to do that, do all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and Dr. Robinson, was there anything on the personnel report you wanted to mention?
Not tonight, thank you.
Well, I wanted to mention someone on the personnel report, and that is Mrs. Liz Armstrong. She began with Fort Wayne Community Schools in 1962. Yes, you heard that correctly. I was at Northcrest Elementary School at the time, and although I never had her as a teacher, she did have at least one of my siblings. And I have seen her 2 or 3 times since I got elected to the board, and she remembers, she knew who I was, and she remembered, well, I'm sure my siblings stood out for other reasons, a reason I won't mention, but but I was even amazed then at her energy and her dedication to education. And what is that? 56 years with Fort Wayne Community Schools. I'm not sure if that's a record or not, but so she is retiring, I think in January maybe?
January.
So I just want to give a shout out to her, and I hope she has a long and happy retirement. She has earned it. So we have no old business, and that brings us to new business, first of which is our high ability grant. It's recommended that the board approve the application for and acceptance of a high ability grant from the Indiana Department of Education in the amount of $150,068 for the 2018-19 school year. The state of Indiana provides non-competitive funds for districts to address the learning needs of high-ability students. Funds for this school year will be used to provide assessments and other tools to aid in the appropriate identification of high-ability students for the 18-19 school year, as well as testing materials for the fall of 19. To provide extensive professional learning opportunities for all advanced placement teachers with the College Board. To provide professional learning opportunities for elementary and middle school principals and teachers around high-ability needs and supports, and to provide an appropriate education for identified high-ability students through differentiated services and program options. Currently, high-ability services are delivered through the efforts of classroom teachers. The overall program is coordinated by Amelia Flieger. Yes. Curriculum Coordinator of K-12 High Ability, Advanced Placement, and Dual Credit and Fine Arts. This grant addresses Goal 1, achieve and maintain academic excellence. And Amelia is here to answer any questions. Do we have a motion and a second?
Motion for approval?
Second.
Thanks, Glenna. Thanks, Maria. Any questions?
Amelia, this addresses assessments and testing materials. Have we already identified those, or we are going through the process of that right now?
We have already identified those. The cognitive ability test is a tried and true test that has been used for many years past and has a good history of identifying potential within students.
And when we identify these students, when are they tested?
I'm sorry.
When are they tested?
They're tested, we do universal screening at kindergarten, 2nd, 5th, and then select 8th grade students. But also referrals, we look at with the student the student support team, using data to determine if testing is appropriate.
And so what about high ability music and art students? Are those referrals based or?
It's an interesting question because the high ability grant that is given to us by the state of Indiana only recognizes English language arts and math, as well as both of those areas. That's something that I'd like to look at in the future.
Are most of our students then identified in kindergarten? Or was that the first time they took the test? Is that what you said?
That's the first time that they have a chance to take the assessment, but we universally screen at 2nd and 5th grade because of changes that obviously happen as students are in school longer. So not all of them are necessarily identified at kindergarten. They may be identified at 2nd or at 5th grade, and then also some select 8th grade students.
So a teacher recommends a 2nd grade, a 5th grader to test?
No, actually, they universally screen, so we test all 2,500 students through a screener, and then they qualify to take the full battery. So if students are in the top 12% or the 88th percentile on local norms, then they qualify to take that full battery assessment to see whether or not they should be identified as gifted.
Okay.
Interesting.
And then once they're identified as gifted, then the teacher will provide more enrichment and support to challenge those students
Correct.
at their ability
Correct.
level, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, no more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that brings us to the Title I Title I Part A Basic and Neglected Grant. It's recommended that the board approve the application for and acceptance of the Title I Part A Basic and Neglected Grant from the Indiana Department of Education for the 2018-19 school year in the amount of $12,649,833.71. So Title I is a federally funded program designed to provide schools with high concentrations of low-income students with opportunities for children to acquire knowledge and skills in state content areas and to meet state performance standards for all children. Eligibility for Title I services is based on criteria related to family income. Fort Wayne Community Schools determines target areas based on numbers of students receiving free or reduced lunch and/or direct certified government benefits. These services impact 23 Fort Wayne Community Schools who receive Title I services, 17 schools that have Title I pre-K programs, 27 non-public schools received funds from the 2018 Title I grant. Students who receive free or reduced lunch and live in the Fort Wayne Community School Title I school attendance areas but attend non-public schools are provided instruction through a resource teacher or tutor or instructional assistant or service provider. Homeless students and 2 institutions for neglected children also receive supplemental educational services. This grant is managed by Kimberly Brooks, Title I manager, and supports District Goal 1, achieve and maintain academic excellence, and District Goal 2, engage parents and the community, and District Goal 3, operate effectively with integrity and fiscal responsibility. And questions will be answered by Kimberly Brooks. So do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Maria. Any questions for Kimberly? Okay, and this is something that we receive every year, so, okay. So all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next one, we have the Title I Part D delinquent grant. It's recommended that the board approve the application for and acceptance of the Title I Part D delinquent grant from the Indiana Department of Education for the 2018-19 school year in the amount of $126,311.17. Allen County Juvenile Center, Lifeline Youth and Family, and Redwoods Delinquent Institutions receive funds through the Title I Part D delinquent grant to support instruction and transitional services for their clients who are students. Instruction is designed to sustain academic growth during residency and to close the achievement gap. Both credit coursework and/or tutorial services are available. This grant, again, is managed by Kimberly Brooks, Title I manager, and supports all three of our goals. Questions will be answered by Kimberly Brooks. So do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Maria. Any questions,
I
Steve?
do have one. Is Redwoods a new institution or a new name for an institution that's been around?
No, it's been here for quite a few years.
And it's always been known as Redwoods?
I'm pretty sure it has, at least since I've worked with Title I, it has been.
Where is it located?
We're not able to disclose that
Okay,
for confidential reasons.
okay.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
So does this grant provide, does this pay salaries of teachers who go to these places and provide instruction?
Currently, we don't provide full-time salaries, but more or less stipends for the tutoring. The
Okay.
grant has decreased over the past few years with the changes in the judicial placements through the new youth court initiative, where there are fewer children who are being recommended for residential placements.
Mm-hmm.
So as the count has gone down, we haven't had the amount of funds we've had to have full-time salaried people there. So now it's more
Okay.
tutorial stipends.
So we don't have, because I think in the past, we did have, didn't we have a few full-time teachers at the Allen County Juvenile Center?
I believe we may still through general funds, but
Okay.
for the Title I support, we don't have the full.
Right, okay, okay, gotcha. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Kimberly. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have the bid recommendation for network infrastructure access points, and that's an additional item that should have been in your board folder, by the way. It's recommended that an award be made to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder for the purchase of 347 wireless access points. The company is Presidio out of Carmel, Indiana, for the cost of $195,638.60. It's further recommended that the board approve the purchase of additional units at the same unit cost of $563.80 as needed. This purchase for 347 wireless access points represents a partial first-year replacement of a 5-year replacement cycle for all district access points. The bid specifications will allow for additional quantities to be purchased at the same price for up to 6 months. Due to lower than expected bid price per unit, we were able to purchase an additional 178 units to fulfill the total amount needed for year 1 replacements for a total of 525 wireless access points. The total purchase amount, including the additional 178 units, is $295,995. This purchase will be funded by the Capital Projects Fund. Invitations to bid were sent to 9 prospective bidders, with 4 responding. CDWG of Vernon Hills, Illinois, and DSN Group of Hoffman Estates, Illinois, did not meet bid specifications. And there you can see the two bidders, and Presidio out of Carmel was definitely lower. Questions will be addressed by Director of Technology, Jack Bird. Do we have a motion and a second?
Move for approval.
Second.
Thanks, Glenna. Thanks, Ann. So, Jack, I assume I know what this is. So an access point is if I'm at
I was looking for
Northcrest
one.
Elementary School,
They're in the ceilings.
right, right.
Okay.
So tell me, Northrop High School is our largest school, so how many wireless access points would they have? I'm just curious.
I'm going to say roughly 200,
Okay,
Wow.
okay.
maybe a little less.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, maybe about 150. And I'm going through it in my mind. Still a lot.
Yeah. And you have to have them for, like, separate floors? Does that make a difference?
We put one access point in each classroom, so that's why I'm trying to
Okay.
figure out, remember how many classrooms Northrop has.
Right. And the gym? And the
Yes.
auditorium?
Yes,
And the, okay.
yes. We have one in each room. That way we have the proper saturation
Right.
of the signal.
Interesting.
So if we were buying this device for our homes, we
You
would
would.
call these routers?
Yeah, these devices are different. Same concept of what you buy for your home, but a little bit different. These talk to a main controller down here at Grile, where
Okay.
we monitor the traffic and have better control over it. The ones at home are wireless router that operate over the same spectrum that these do, but these are a little bit more sophisticated.
You're collecting more data.
We're processing more data.
Okay.
Because we can have up to 70 clients attached to one device at times.
Okay.
Won't work at home.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, Jack.
Users, more users.
Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, our next recommendation is for refuse removal and recycling. It's recommended that the board approve a 3-year contract for refuse removal and recycling services. And the contract is with Republic Services out of Fort Wayne, Indiana for $690,238.20. This contract is for refuse removal and recycling of mixed paper and cardboard at all locations throughout the district. The contract term is from January 1, 2019 through December 31st, 2021, with an option to extend. Refuse removal costs are determined by the container sizes and the number of pickups per week at each location. Recycling costs are determined by a monthly rate based on the number of recycle bins and number of weekly pickups at each location. This contract will be funded by the Operations Fund. Invitations to bid were mailed to 5 prospective bidders with 2 responding. And there you can see one was Advanced Disposal and the other was Republic Services. And you can see those corresponding bids for both refuse removal and recycling, with Republic Services being, I would say, significantly lower. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Tom. And, Manager of Maintenance Operations, Pete Smith, is available to answer any questions if anyone has any. Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, next we have some, this is kind of exciting, field trips. The first is Southside High School student trip to Paris, France in March of 2020. It's recommended that the board approve a trip to Paris, France for Southside High School foreign language students from March 28th to April 4th, 2020. Students will have the chance to use the language they are studying and experience the culture of the country. There will be educational opportunities daily. In March, April of 2020, Southside students will participate in a trip to France where students will explore the city and historical sites of Paris. Students will experience culture activities and will enhance their knowledge of and experience speaking the French language. Students will have an opportunity to fundraise to cover the cost of the trip. They will accompanied by Southside teacher Taylor Buzzard. This activity supports District Goal 1, achieve and maintain academic excellence. And questions will be answered by Chief of School Leadership, Get Nichols. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Glenna. So Get, do we have an approximate cost per student for the trip?
We don't at this time. The teacher is here, and Taylor is right there, and he probably has more details.
I mean, just like ballpark.
The trip is about $4,000 a student before any fundraising or grants.
And what kind of, I'm just curious, what kind of fundraising do you anticipate?
In the past, we've done like coupon books, car washes, things like that. The main source of like scholarship money that we do is the Hefner Grant that students apply for and get a certain amount of money depending on their economic status or their family status.
Okay. So we should be alert for in 2020 and maybe 2019 for coupon books and car washes.
Yes,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay,
And
great.
what grade level of students are eligible to go on this trip?
It's 9 through 12, so anybody that's enrolled in French class, yeah.
What company are you using?
EF Tours.
Isn't there a requirement that these trips
Take board
require
members?
a board member to attend with them?
Didn't come up with $4,000, I think I'll let you go, Steve.
I'm going to be out there selling whatever it is.
That might boost their fundraising.
You also have to chaperone.
Okay, any other questions? Great,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Now, I took 4 years of French. How do you say thank you?
Merci.
Merci, okay. Brain fart. I've tried to put it behind me.
I think you need to go.
What's that?
You need to go.
Yeah, there you go. I need to brush up on my skills. Well, think about it. So all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have a Northside High School trip to Europe in June of 2020. It's recommended that the board approve a trip to Europe for Northside High School foreign language students from June 16th to the 29th, 2020. Students will have the chance to use the language they are studying and experience the culture of several countries. There will be educational opportunities in each country visited. In June 2020, Northside students will participate in a trip to Europe. The students will explore cities and historical sites in Germany, France, and Spain, and experience cultural activities that will enhance their knowledge of the French, German, and Spanish languages. They will have opportunities to put into practice the language skills they have learned to interact with native speakers. Students will have an opportunity to fundraise, cover the cost of the trip. Students will be accompanied by Northside teacher Erin Stanley. This activity supports Goal 1, achieve and maintain academic excellence. Questions will be passed on by Chief of School Leadership, Get Nichols. So we have a motion and a second.
Move approval.
Second.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks,
Steve.
Steve. So Get, is Erin here?
What can I tell you?
So this is open to, is German offered at Northside?
By me? Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
second year of German at Northside,
Great.
so.
great. So students study any of the, either French, Spanish, or German are eligible to go then?
Correct. We've also decided that if they've studied it in the past but have decided for one reason or another not to continue in a foreign language, that they should also still have the opportunity to
Okay.
go if they'd like to.
Okay, great.
And once you're in Europe, are you, obviously you're going by plane, but then will you travel via train to the other countries, or?
Yeah, I believe that from Germany to France, it is an overnight train, and then from Paris, which is the main area in France that we'll visit, is another overnight train down to Monaco, and then an overnight train to Barcelona. Yeah. So overnight trains, I believe, between each country.
Nice.
Great.
Do you have a rough estimate for the cost of this?
About $4,000. But for
And
that $4,000, if you tried to price this trip out individually, it would probably be upwards of $9,000.
What company are you using?
Explorica.
Just curious, with these, with this requirement that we approve it, is that a district policy or state law?
It's always been the policy here. I don't think
Just that
state law.
where students from our district are leaving the country?
Absolutely. Because one of the things that we have done in the past is when tensions are high in certain parts of the country, we want to make sure that the board takes responsibility for even saying, no, we're not going to take that trip. So
So if
just a
if we
policy.
were- it may not be, it may be that a teacher might be thinking of a country that we would not approve, that probably would not even come before us, that might be
That rarely
discouraged at a lower level. Okay.
And so what kind of fundraising do you anticipate, and will you also allow a board member to tag along?
Well, for every 6 students that goes, it is a free trip for an adult chaperone. So, just saying.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, every 6 students pays for the cost of one adult chaperone.
Sure, those spots are-
As far as fundraising, reaching out to the different societies here in Fort Wayne, the German Heritage Society, Latino Society, see if they want to offer any sort of scholarship or grant money. Perhaps a booth at German Fest. I thought perhaps if I could really arrange it, an Oktoberfest dinner with bratwurst, sauerkraut, spätzle, schnitzel, I mean, whatever. No beer, however, we are, a public school district, sorry. But, I mean, just anything I can really think of to make it affordable for as many students as possible.
Great. And have you chaperoned one of these trips abroad before?
I have not chaperoned a trip. I've been on a couple of trips like this
As
an older student, but not as a chaperone.
Okay. Good luck.
Yeah, I do have an experienced chaperone going with me. One of our Spanish teachers has done this before,
Great.
and she's indicated that she would like to go if the trip is approved.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have the ratification of the AFSCME contract. It's recommended that the board ratify a 2-year contract and approve wage increases for the employees represented by the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, or AFSCME, excuse me, which represents Fort Wayne Community Schools secretaries, media clerks, assistants, clerks, hearing and visually impaired interpreters, groundskeepers, and nutrition service employees. That's a variety. Employees represented by AFSCME will receive a 4% increase to their wages for the 18-19 fiscal year. Contract language was updated to be consistent across the district and to reflect current employee relations practices. Questions will be answered by Chief Operations Officer Charles Kamick or General Counsel David Amon. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Glenna. Any questions? You're off the hook. Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and next we have, correct, it's recommended that the board ratify an amendment to the master contract between Fort Wayne Community Schools and the Fort Wayne Education Association. During the renegotiation of the master teacher contract in 2017, Fort Wayne Community Schools and the FWEA agreed that in 2018, the master teacher contract would reopen to negotiate several outstanding topics. Those included the creation of a career ladder pilot, compensation for teachers through the United States Department of Education Teacher and School Leader Incentive Program, or PEER grant, and an incentive for teachers who are required to complete additional coursework to maintain dual credit certification. And so this new contract addresses all those needs. Questions will be answered by Chief Operations Officer Charles Kamick Jr. or General Counsel David Amon. So do we have a motion and a second?
Move for approval.
Second.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Ann. So,
We're good.
we're good?
We're good.
Okay. No questions? So, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And just in case if you're wondering, we did meet in executive session before this meeting, and so board members did not ask any questions because they have all seen the details of the contract. So that brings us to, we have no reports at tonight's meeting, so that brings us to the close of the meeting, and that only leaves board member comments. Steve?
Two thoughts tonight. One, I just wanted to commend the bargaining teams for the district and FWEA and AFSME. I know that we try to be as fair and generous as possible. Those are not always, I know we'd love to give more, but I know that we're not going to give away money that we don't have and really cause financial stress to the district. So we appreciate the work that our employees provide us every day. They do great work, and just wish we had more, but I know that we did as much as we possibly could. So thank you, teams. Also wanted to mention Saturday, Maria and I were present for the Fort Wayne Urban League annual dinner, and at that dinner, Dr. Robinson was one of several recipients, and I hope I get this right. It is the Thurgood Marshall Leadership Award, second line drum major for social justice. So we're honored to have a very effective and outstanding leader recognized by people in this community as doing good things for kids. So congratulations, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you.
No comment?
No comment.
I just wanted to thank all of the schools for their dedication to the Veterans Day programs that they all did. I know my son had his Veterans Day program today, and my grandfather, who's a Korean War veteran, was able to attend that, so he's always excited. So just want to say thank you to all the veterans out there, and thank you to our schools, staff and administrators for taking the time to make those programs happen.
I have no
Thanks,
comment.
Maria. No? Dr. Robinson?
Just to follow up Maria's comment, we used to have Veterans Day off until we realized that most of the kids had no idea why they had the day off. And so for the last, I can't remember how long, we've been, we don't even have to require it anymore. The combination of staff members bringing in relatives and neighbors, and I don't know who's more excited, the veterans are being recognized or the kids are just absolutely beautiful with veterans. So I just want to echo. We're in school so the kids can actually know why we have a Veterans Day.
Exactly. I think every year I get at least maybe one email asking, why we are in school on Veterans Day. And both Maria and Dr. Robinson, you both mentioned it. The kids actually get a chance to see veterans, thank veterans, look at, history that they, in another way that they may not, get in class. So, it's not only a way to honor veterans, but it's a way for students to recognize also what that day means. And also like to echo Steve's sentiment, I hope that teachers and other employees are happy with the contracts that we got. I believe that the administration does the best it can do, and it reminds me that, Indiana operates on a 2-year budget cycle, and in January of 2019, that legislative session begins the next 2 years of budgets, and that determines how much money we can get, and thereby what we can do for our employees. So I would, if you look historically at budget increases over the past, I would say, 8 years, they have not kept up with inflation. In other words, if inflation is, 2.5%, we're not getting 2.5, Indiana's K-12 is not getting that type of increase. And so as a result, pretty much since 2010, teachers in Indiana have continued to fall behind. And in fact, at the meeting that Steve and I went to Thursday night, I think it was mentioned that we are the second fastest in the country at losing ground in teacher salaries. And that doesn't speak well for what Indiana thinks about K-12 education. And if that bothers you, then I would urge you to contact your legislator and ask them to do better. And I also wanted to mention, we have a teacher in our district, Ryan Kearns, who teaches at Indian Village, who became a national pickleball champion. He and his and Ryan, of course, Ryan is known as a tennis player in Fort Wayne, so it's no surprise that he also became very good very quickly at pickleball, but he and his partner became national champions. So it was shout out to Ryan and his partner, Courtney. That's all I have. So if we have a motion for adjournment, then we'll take comments.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Maria. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we have a couple of